Playing unpainted models suck, and you know what's coming. Time for another Wonders Off discussion. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, another Wonders Off discussion, and in this one we're going to talk about playing unpainted miniatures. Before that though, if you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so I know this topic has been done many times before, but what I would like to do in this video is have a chat about my experience regarding unpainted miniatures, and then maybe at the end of the video share a few hints and tips on how you can deal with unpainted miniatures yourself. So let's begin with my experience and where I first started. Now, I've never had a problem playing with or playing against unpainted miniatures. I think it's almost the nature of the game. Of course, I would prefer to play with a fully painted army, and I would prefer to play against a fully painted army, especially now that I'm recording the battle reports for the YouTube channel. Now, not everyone thinks this way. Some people prefer to only play with painted armies, or will play only against people with painted armies. And it got me thinking, why is it that I don't mind unpainted miniatures? So reflecting back to when I first started playing, and I think I found the groundwork of why I don't really mind unpainted miniatures. That's because the person that introduced me to the game, he really wasn't into painting. He was very much into converting. He did some awesome conversions on his armies, but he never painted them. So I always played against unpainted miniatures when I first started the hobby, and I think this had a big impact on me. I think it was almost the norm for me to play against somebody who had an unpainted army. However, it didn't really change my perspective of the game. I wanted to paint my army. Indeed, I started painting pretty much straight away. I remember painting my first box of Necron warriors, painted them all up, showed my buddy, and that's when he said, what about the mould lines? Mould lines? What's that? Yeah, I discovered mould lines that way. So I had to go back, strip the mould lines off and repaint them. And ever since then, I've always watched out for mould lines quite carefully. And ever since that first unit of Necron warriors, I've pretty much always been painting something. Of course, over the years, I've collected many armies, so a lot of the armies are still not finished. However, a good proportion of those models are painted. Now, it wasn't just the models that I wanted to get painted, I also wanted to build and paint my Necron terrain. I remember one week my buddies coming around, we were using jam jars and boxes and stuff for the terrain, and I remember the next week they came round, I had my Necron Abyss built and painted, put it on the table, and I remember my buddy saying, wow, you did that in a week, that's awesome. So I've always had the enthusiasm to build and paint my models. But I still played with unpainted miniatures, and I didn't mind that, and I didn't mind playing against unpainted miniatures. So I suppose you could say I just grew up accepting unpainted miniatures. Now, if I'd been in a totally different environment, let's just say that my buddy had a painted army, and then he said to me, right, we're going to play 500 points, but you've got to get your army painted before we can play. We only play once our models are painted. If that had been set upon me right at the beginning, maybe I would have a different attitude to unpainted miniatures. Unpainted models? I'm not going to play with you. Now, my attitude has changed over the years. In actual fact, I will now only play with painted models. I don't mind playing against somebody's army which is unpainted, but personally I'd like my army to be fully painted. So if I do have a new unit that I want to try out, I won't try it out until it's fully painted. Now, I believe there's several reasons for this. One is the YouTube channel, as I said previously. It's just better to have a battle report up when the models are fully painted and you've got some really nice terrain. Now, I can't really help if my buddy plays with unpainted models. Of course, I could say you're only playing with painted models, especially if I'm doing the battle reports, but that isn't fair, because at the end of the day we're just two friends getting together and playing a game. Obviously, I do try to encourage painted models from him, but he doesn't have as much time to paint models, and he doesn't have such a big collection of models to choose from. for his games. So I don't actually enforce anything there. As long as my armies are fully painted, then I feel satisfied that I at least am doing my best. But it's not just the YouTube channel that wants me to play only painted models. There is another big factor involved, and that is that I've got a good percentage of my models painted, and that means that I can pick and choose the units for my armies and only pick the painted ones. Obviously, the more models that you have painted, the easier it is to play a painted army. If you go back to some of my very first battle reports, which with my Eldar army, I literally had no models painted. Now a good percentage of my Eldar are painted. It's nice actually looking back through my battle reports and gradually see those models being painted. I think that's the key thing really, especially when you're amongst friends. As long as you can see that your buddies are actually painting their units gradually, because let's face it, it takes a lot of time to paint the units, but as long as you can see some effort, as long as every couple of months a new painted unit comes into play, then I think that you should be quite accepting that somebody is playing an unpainted army. Like I said, as long as there is some sort of effort there, because at the end of the day we do want to play painted armies. They just look better. You can engage into the game a lot better. It's just overall a much better experience. So if you're watching this video, maybe you're just starting an army, maybe you do only want to play it when it's painted, and I thought maybe I would share just a few tips that I've learned over the years. Now I can tell you from personal experience, one of the worst things that you can do is go out and actually buy the full army, like 2,000 points worth of models, get them all built, put them on the table, look at them, think right now I need to paint them, and it's like, oh my god. Sometimes it can be totally overwhelming. Done. Well, apart from those 30 Marines, it doesn't mean that it's not possible, and potentially if you're using say an airbrush and you're doing quite a basic colour scheme, you can get all of those models painted quite quickly. But if you're a bit like me, trying to paint every model to the best of your ability, that can take a long time. I mean, you could take a couple of months to paint 10 Marines, and then you've got this massive army in front of you. Like I said, it can be really daunting and it can really put you off. My advice would be to get a HQ and a couple of units of troops and get those painted first. Try to get around 500 points worth of models and get those painted first before you buy anything else. What it will mean is that you've got 500 points to play, so you can play a small skirmish type game with those painted units, and then whilst you're playing those games with the painted models, you can then start another unit, gradually expand the army up to 1,000 points, and then 1,500 points, and then 2,000 points. Keep it manageable. If you do it in small bite-sized chunks, it is a lot easier. Like I said, it doesn't mean that it's not possible to paint an entire army, but it's definitely a lot easier and less daunting. Now I don't know how long you've been following my channel, but I did actually embark on painting my Dark Eldar army in a month. It was 2,200 points and I managed to paint it all in a month. I put around 6 to 7 hours each day into that army. It was a massive task. I enjoyed it. I felt incredibly satisfied at the end, but it took all my knowledge and all my experience to actually achieve that. I don't think I could have done that at the beginning of my hobby career, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend to you guys that that's the way to go. I would say small and bite-sized chunks is the way to go. Now I'd love to know what you think about this topic. Do you mind playing against or playing with unpainted models? How much does it bother you? Or do you only play against painted armies or only play with painted armies? Also, do you have any tips for somebody watching this video about getting their army painted? Let's have some comments below and continue the discussion. Beam me up!